says very large on the front of it. It says "So What We Wanted," and this was the first really public statement that I recall from one of our local gangs making this big bold statement that they were associated with a national traditional gang, and they were wearing these obviously quite publicly. You'll notice on the back of it that says Red Cartel and Creek City Records and a Rock Gang. Those three crews that I mentioned earlier, and the words "So What We Wanted" is actually also the title of the song that was published by some members of the Red Cartel as well about the bloody affiliation. Actually, this is the front and back of one shirt. I want to make sure that's clear. But the shirt is obviously in red. That color is associated with Bloods street gangs or gangs that are associated with the Bloods.
Now you mentioned that was a song that was published by a member of Red Cartel. Is Red Cartel a record label?
I don't believe Red Cartel was ever actually a record label, but I don't know that for sure.
Was Red Cartel a criminal street gang?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, is being a rapper or a performer and being a criminal street gang member, are those two mutually exclusive?
They're not mutually exclusive.
So you can be both?
You certainly could be.
You talked about the types of activity that you've seen or that Ray family engaged in. Did this activity remain confined to strictly the Cleveland Avenue area of Atlanta?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Could you tell the jury a little bit about how he touched other parts of the county?
So there were certain other crimes that Rock Crew members were suspected of. One of them, actually two of the more notable ones that we investigated early on in our working with this gang, one was ATM theft. Mr. Sharp? Okay, I got it. I got it. I'm going to overrule your objection, sir.
These are incidents that have, or these are personal experiences as well as experiences that Detective Belknap is speaking.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
You may continue.
One of those crimes was ATM thefts. Members were suspected, in some cases arrested and prosecuted for stealing ATM machines all around the metro area. Some members were engaged in armed robberies. They were robbing the operators of armored cars in several places around the metro area. The narcotics trafficking and sales were predominantly in the Cleveland Avenue corridor in that turf of that territory. But some of their aggravated assaults and even some of their homicides were in other parts of the city.
Was there a particular person who was known to be the head of Rock Crew?
Yeah, the leader, the head of Rock Crew was Quentin Porter, they called him.
Now, did Rock Crew remain or did it transition into something different?
So we saw a change in Rock Crew around 2012 and 2013, away from using the name Rock Crew, and we started seeing other things pop up in that area.
Do you know or are you aware of what it was that happened before that precipitated that change or that may have contributed to it based on your experiences?
There were, I would say, two.
Without speaking about words someone else said specifically, just generally the things that occurred.
Okay, I'll do my best to abide by that. There were really, I would say, maybe three things that we observed that coincided with this change or this shift that appeared to have some influence on this change. One was law enforcement attention on Rock Crew. They've been obviously responsible, as I've mentioned, for a number of high-profile crimes, and the Atlanta Police Department, along with federal partners, including the FBI and the U.S. Marshals, had conducted multiple investigations that led to many arrests of Rock Crew members. And incarceration of many members. The other thing that occurred was this next piece. I don't know if I can say without it being.
Okay. Let me ask you the question.
Okay.
Did you all ever conduct any wiretaps that involve robbery?
We did.
And during the listening to and reviewing of those wiretaps, did you all observe or hear members of rock group talking to one another?
We did.
Would you tell the jury what it was?
I sustain this to form. That's to form. You rephrase.
Would you tell the jury what it was that led to you all having a wiretap on rock group?
In 2011, there was a 30 deep gang member who was being prosecuted in a murder trial here in Fulton County. One of the witnesses in that case had to tip.
Mr. Steele? Mr. Steele? Don't do that. You can approach.
I can check.
was.
And who was the other member?
There were other members for sure involved in those conversations, but the target telephone was Timothy Thomas.
Did you observe it or overhear, or did you all detect or identify or discover a telephone call between the reporter and Trifecta Stevens?
Not during the wiretap, no ma'am.
Okay. At what point did you all learn of a conversation between the reporter and Trifecta Stevens?
That was during an investigation of a separate incident that coincided with and was picked up on our wiretap.
During that time, did anything happen to Trifecta Stevens?
Objection. I'll objection.
Something or anything that you all found significant in terms of what happened with Roderick and his death?
So, Mr. Stevens was suspected of committing an armed robbery on Cleveland Avenue of Javon Crittenden, who at the time was an NBA basketball player. And after that time, during our investigation, Mr. Crittenden was accused and later convicted of shooting at Mr. Stevens and shooting and killing an innocent third party.
Did the shooting occur in close proximity with the call from the reporter to Mr. Stevens?
It did, to my knowledge, yes.
Okay. What other events occurred during that time that coincided with the split or eventual change in the structure of Roderick?
Around this time on social media, there was also posted a picture.
Guys, we're not talking about a statement, out of court statement being offered for the truth of the matter, sir. We're talking about an observation
I'll objection.
on social media.
I'll objection.
A picture of a page that came from a discovery package from the Atlanta Police Department homicide investigation was published to social media. In the picture that was posted to social media, the investigative summary stated that Mr. Porter had given a statement.
Bless you. All right. That's your objection? Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, as to what was in the report that was posted to social media, again, you're not offering a great truth of the matter, sir. And actually, this testimony without.
All right. I'm going to overrule the objection. That was your objection. What was your objection, Mr. Harvey? I didn't deal with that, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor,
Okay, since you made the objection, Mr. Harvey, come on up.
say yes, we are seeing that.
And what is the purpose of that generally as it relates to the game? And what is the purpose of that as it relates to game culture and law enforcement investigations?
Currently, what is probably our greatest challenge in investigating street gangs is witness tampering. And this activity has been a significant part of that, where potential witnesses or victims that are cooperating with police can be outed on social media to a large number of people on a very short amount of time, thereby making it very difficult to get people to testify, to report crimes, and to be witnesses in crimes.
What was it that you observed shortly after these events?
Well, essentially, rock crew, as we had seen it, nearly disappeared from Cleveland Avenue. We didn't see that name in use anymore, and we didn't see the same activity centered around that set of identifiers happening on Cleveland Avenue.
What was it that you saw in its place?
Starting in 2013 and going into mid-2013, we started getting reports, 911 calls for service from a variety of people in the Cleveland Avenue area, from competition calls. Oh, Mr. Steele. Oh, sorry. We received calls from several of the schools in the area, as well as some parents in the area, and the general reporting.
Come on here, Mr. Sharp.
saw that was from reporting of incidents within the community.
And
Hold on one second. If you have a device that is a camera with a shutter or anything else that is making noise, please put it on man mode. I told you that yesterday. Well, I'm going to have it removed. I'm sorry. I apologize to all of you. Go ahead, sir.
And what words were you hearing coming from these sources?
They were reporting that the activity was related to a group called Slime Gang.
And are these coming from adults, from schools, from middle age, from high school?
Speculation, competition clause. I'm going to sustain it as to one of the basis form, and so you can rephrase that, okay?
Are these reports coming into the Atlanta Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
And are they coming in through civilians?
Yes.
Not quite.
And
Oh, right for now.
are they related, the reports that call your attention to this slime, are they related to adults, are they related to children, or what?
Basis. No. Well, the form of the question. I'll state as the form of the question.
What is the age group of the persons that these reports are related to?
So we're receiving reports.
Hold on. I will sustain the objection as to form. That was Mr. Steele. Let me ask a question, Ms. Why were you getting these calls, Detective Belknap?
We were getting these calls because citizens in the community were reporting criminal activity related to this slime gang.
Were these reports coming from the schools?
Where were the reports coming from? Sustain as to form.
Yes, sir. So some of the reports were coming from the local schools, from South Atlanta High School, Crawford Lawn Middle School. Other reports were coming from parents within the community reporting incidents involving their children.
APD's investigation, or did APD begin investigating any particular groups as it related to those reports?
We did.
What was the group?
What we began to discover was activity by a group calling themselves Young Slime Life.
So, what are you able to tell the jury about the group called Young Slime Life?
Through investigation, we discovered that the gang was formed in late 2012. We've identified over 100 members and associates as of the present time. They were based in the same area as the previous rock crew, and in fact, what we discovered was many of the members now claiming to be YSL actually had previously claimed to be members of rock crew.
Now, did this group called Young Slime Life, did it consist of 3 or more members?
It did.
Would you tell the jury whether or not there were any other indicators about this group that would qualify it as a criminal street gang?
Your Honor, basis. The honor intent is not the intent of the jury. All right, overruled.
I believe we can advance the slide here, the demonstrative. What we observed was that the group had a common name, which was Young Slime Life. Among the symbols that they used included wearing red bandanas, but also we saw the use of green bandanas. They used expressions like the word slap, which we discovered stood for slime life all the time. And they used that word slime in a variety of different ways. We saw people tattooing certain identifiers on their person, including the letters YSL, the phrase slime life, and also using 5-point stars and red accents in some of those tattoos. Graffiti was similar identifiers, but seeing that tag in the community, their attire, again, using those gang flags or gang bandanas in red or green colors, and also custom clothing around the idea of slime. And we also saw them using other distinguishing characteristics, like using snakes, lizards, including emojis of snakes on social media. Some members refer to the group as Rudy Gang. That refers to a gang member who was shot and killed in 2016. His nickname was Rudy. And we also saw them using other blood gang identifiers, specifically often those associated with the sex, money, murder bloods.
Were there any crimes that you observed or that were investigated that were committed by members of Youngthug and members of the group itself?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you talk to the jury a little bit about those types of crimes and the types of crimes that were investigated?
Same objection is relevant to this ability and one of the. All right. I'm all on objections.
You may talk about it.
So as we've discussed already, and what we saw is continued activity with predominantly narcotic sales in the Cleveland Avenue area, the narcotic sales and distribution. We also saw armed robberies, we saw shootings, we've seen murders, auto thefts, burglaries, we did see some ATM thefts and other things of that nature.
Now, were there any other groups that you found to be associated with Youngthug?
As Rob Crew had an association with 30 Deep, we found that YSL also had an association with 30 Deep.
And were there any rival groups of YSL?
Well, they were not initially rivals. During the course of our investigation, we discovered a rivalry between Young Slime Life and the Inglewood Family Gangster Bloods. There are three gangs in Atlanta that are associated with the Inglewood Family Gangster Bloods specifically. Those are ABG, which is Atlanta Blood Gang or Anybody Get It, the Haiti Gang, and also Bird Gang.
Are you familiar with the record label called Young Stoner Life?
I am.
Is that the same entity that you are referring to when you say Young Slime?
No, it's not.
Would you tell the jury the distinction, please?
So, Young Stoner Life is a Georgia corporation that was, I believe, incorporated in July of 2014 as a music publishing arm. When I refer to YSL, what I'm referring to is Young Slime Life, the gang that we investigated for these activities that we discussed.
Now, let's talk a little bit about artists, music artists in the city of Atlanta and Fulton County. Are you familiar with Jeremy Williams?
I am.
Is he the only artist or musical artist in Fulton County?
No, ma'am.
Now, are there other artists that in their music talk about illegal gun sales or illegal drugs or anything like that that the Atlanta Police Department is aware of? Has the Atlanta Police Department ever investigated anyone because of something that they wrote, music-wise?
I don't honestly feel like I can speak for the police department in its history.
Let me talk about you.
Question. Okay.
All right. So, as it relates to a musical artist's works, is there any crime in saying words?
There are certainly potentially crimes in spoken words.
All right. Now, I'm not talking about crimes being spoken words. I'm thinking of, is there a crime to speak words?
As a generality, no. Outside of Your Honor, that also answers the question.
So it's not responsive, is that what you're saying? Okay, I'll sustain this and not responsive.
Have you ever sought to arrest anyone for speaking words? Yes,
No, ma'am.
when you talk about
extent that I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay. Does the Atlanta Police Department, and you as a gang investigator, consider Young Stoner Life to be the same as Young Slime Life?
Yes. Yes. Through the course of our investigation, we did not view those two entities as being the same. No.
Would you talk a little bit about gang colors as it relates to your expertise as gang investigator?
Sure, as mentioned, gangs often represent their gang through the use of specific colors, just as a visual identifier to represent that gang. Of course, all of these colors can be used in completely non-gang related and lawful ways, but gangs will particularly adopt the use of these colors, and oftentimes we use them in a particular way. So, for example, gangs that associate with the Bloods will use the color red, as we mentioned. They'll also often associate those colors with the right side of their body. This is a counter to the rival groups who often associate their colors and identifiers with the left side of their body. So we may see those colors used on the right side. Picture here, just an illustration of wearing a bandana, a red bandana on the right side of the body. There's another example of use of a bandana, maybe worn tied around the head, tied around the neck. I think we saw a picture earlier of using the bandana tied around belt loops. We often see that tied on the right side of a belt loop. This also, as you can see, is an example of a gang tattoo with the letters YSL tattooed on the right side of the face.
And in the event that I did not ask this question already, in your opinion, Young Slime Life is a criminal street gang?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk about gang colors as it relates to the images of the
Sure, this is a picture of Mr. Stevenson with my deceased, and the use of the green bandana that we saw used with YSL.
And you can use the liquor now, so I'm going to see it first.
Alright, and this photo again, the use of the green bandanas, and also we're beginning to see hand signs in this picture. The YSL hand sign made this way.
Now, so why is that inside of you? Just tell us, to explain to the jury what, because I saw fingers. Would you explain to the jury what it is that you're doing with your fingers?
Sure, so this would be the Y here, and then I guess these fingers form your S, and this is the L.
And is that from the classic?
Well, that's nice.
Yes.
Now, what about gang tattoos? Talk to us a little bit about
As I mentioned, we began seeing members of this group tattooing themselves with YSL. So this photograph was taken during the arrest of Trontavia Stevens, and he has YSL tattooed on his body. And this was in addition to previous tattoos that we had seen and tattoos observed on this day, where he had Rock Crew Cleveland Avenue tattooed across his fingers. Here's another example of this tattoo. You can see on the right shoulder it says slime, and on the left shoulder it says life. And here another example of YSL being tattooed on the right side of the face. Sure, so this is an example of the YSL hand sign again, being thrown here.
And so the person wearing red, is the person wearing red throwing the YSL inside, or the person wearing white throwing the YSL inside?
Yes, I apologize. The person on the right wearing the red is throwing the YSL hand sign in this picture.
What are we looking at here?
This is another example of the YSL hand sign. I'm sorry. This is an additional hand sign used by YSL members. It's to indicate wiping your nose. And they will draw the index finger across the lip underneath the nose in the fashion you can see here.
And are there any markings or tattoos that are related to YSL depicted in this photograph?
Yes, and additionally, you can see the word SLAT tattooed across the index finger.
Excellent. Talk to us a little bit about the clothing that you see in relation to YSL.
So here's some examples of some of the clothing we began to see YSL gang members produce and wear. This hoodie on the left has a definition of the word slime as seen on here, which says, I can't be trusted, or a repulsive or despicable person, wipe your effing nose, because you slime enough. And on the right, you see a hat that says, Make America Slime Again.
What gang graffiti have you observed as it relates to gang YSL?
So this is an example of what we've seen, where we'll see YSL and then SLAT, or some combination thereof, tattooed on various places around the Cleveland Avenue area.
Slime. Slime was making some products. One of y'all, they was about that business. Slime.
Activity that you see committed by members of YSL, did that activity constitute criminal street gang activity that you described?
Yes, ma'am.
And has that activity been confined to the Cleveland Avenue area in Fulton Town?
It does not.
Has a large part of that activity occurred in the Cleveland Avenue area in Fulton Town?
I would say so, yes.
What is the significance of 30D, the group 30D, as it relates to YSL?
So, 30 Deep existed prior to my time coming into the gang unit. They were believed to be founded in 2004. As you recall, I came to the gang unit in 2009, and we immediately were tasked with investigating crimes committed by 30 Deep. They were based in the Mechanicsville neighborhood, which is in southwest Atlanta, and we've identified over 100 members or associates of 30 Deep.
What about 30D allowed you to categorize it as a criminal street gang?
So looking at this from the perspective of our direction from our gang law, we see that 30 Deep has a common name, which is 30 Deep. We also had several, as we mentioned before, of these sets, of these sort of subsets or cliques within the gang. Some examples of that are DRC, which stood for the Robin Crew, YRC, which was Young Robin Crew, BRC, which stood for Baby Robin Crew. That group has now taken on the name KT, which stands for Cutthroat. We saw them using signs and symbols. They make a 3-0 hand sign, and that was actually pictured in the photo before, and we'll show you another picture of it in a minute, I believe. We see them tattoo certain identifiers on their body. They use the number 30, of course. They also use 272, 372, and 972. Now, this is a good way to benchmark when the game started because those numbers correspond with numbers on the telephone keypad. Now in the era of smartphones, we probably can't even say the last time we saw a telephone keypad, but at the time, this predated wide adoption of smartphones. So the number 272 corresponds with the letters BRC on a telephone keypad, 372 corresponds with DRC, and 972 corresponds with YRC. We also see them tattoo their neighborhood name, Mechanicsville, sometimes Zone 3, which is the patrol zone that they were in conjunction with these other identifiers. We would see graffiti and tagging of that number 30 deep, as well as other identifiers. And while 30 deep started out as a non-traditional neighborhood-based gang, we did see over that time period that I mentioned earlier, 2009, 2010, 2011, that they began also taking on blood gang identifiers, wearing red bandanas and other gang-related clothing, also making custom clothing. They were often referred to as the Smash Gang because their staple crime was committing smash and grab burglaries of commercial stores.
And their identifiers, what types of identifiers did they utilize?
So the ones previously mentioned, and also began taking on other common blood gang identifiers.
Were there any associated gangs as they relate to 30?
Yes, so we found they were associated with ROC, as mentioned, and YSL. They also had association with the Goodfellas Street.
How is that association reflected in what you observed and what you learned about or investigated during your time?
What we saw was a cooperation between those two groups, their criminal activities, such that the line was blurred between the two groups. They were regularly together, both associating with each other and committing crimes with each other.
As it relates to gang colors and what is depicted in this slide, what is it that you are able to tell the jury about 30 and its identifiers?
So what you can see here is the use of the red bandanas again. We're beginning to see that use here in these pictures, and what you're also seeing is the 30 deep hand sign that everybody is throwing up in this picture.
Now, would you hope are you able to make that hand sign?
I can. So this is the 3 right here, and then the O in the middle for 30. There's another example of the hand sign. This is an example of that tattoo I mentioned earlier, tattooing 30, some part of their body, in this case on the face. Here's an example of the 372 for DRC. Here's an example of KT for cutthroat, tattooed on the throat. And this is an example of their gang tagging. You can see the 30 sort of in the middle on the left, also DRC, and there are a couple other sort of clicks from that area that are on here as well.
And going to the next slide.
Here's another one, a large 30 tattooed. And this is also going into that period where they're associated with the Bloods, and the person you see depicted here is throwing up a hand sign we'll discuss more, I believe, in a minute, which is the two guns hand sign associated with the sex money murder Bloods.
And you got to exactly what I was going to ask next. How are you able to tell that just this number 3 and 0 in face is associated with 30?
Well, again, there are two ways that we do this. One is that we look at the content of it, and it's the number 30. There's also a 5 there, as you see in the middle, that 5 again relating to the blood gang. But this picture was taken in Mechanicsville, and the person depicted in this picture is a member of 30D.
And what are we looking at in the slide?
This is another picture of a gang tag. And in this case, this picture was actually a tag that was put on the side of the Atlanta Public Safety Headquarters building across the street from our city municipal court. So here we have 30 deep in Mechanicsville.
Now, what the significance of the slide?
So the initial message is obvious. It says 30 deep. And again, excuse the language, it has the word bitch below. What you notice is something we mentioned earlier, which is the crossing out of the letter C, using the letter X in place of it as a disrespect to Crip gangs. The shirt itself is in red and white, the print on it is red. The wearer of this shirt has a red bandana tied around his head and is throwing that sex money murder gang hand sign. Here's some more gang clothing. So they have the 30 right here with the DRC, so 30 and the Robin crew. The picture on the right, YRC, DRC for life. In the picture on the left, you also see the wearer throwing a B hand sign that's associated with blood gangs. gangs.
And are you able to show the jury how that is fake brand?
Yes, it's made like this.
And what about what we're looking at here?
So more gang clothing, the 972 KT4L. The 4L stands for life. So cutthroat for life. On the right, you see BRC with the 272 in KT and the gang moniker below that.
But when you're in a hurry, there's still time for personal.
Got to have the commercial, y'all.
Sure, 30 Deep was heavily involved in narcotics distribution and sales in the Gainesville community, but what they're most known for, I mentioned already, which was smash and grab burglaries. They essentially pioneered the art of stealing a car, driving it through the front of the store, and then sending, 5, 6, 7, 8 people inside to run in and grab as much stuff as they could, run back out and sell those things on the street. And when I came to the gang unit in 2009, the Atlanta Police Department greatly expanded the gang unit to respond to that exact trend. And we were tasked with attempting to interdict those crimes and stop this rash of smash and grab burglaries. But members didn't just do property crimes; they were also involved in quite a number of shootings, several murders, a lot of aggravated assaults, a lot of stolen cars, high volume theft from autos, sometimes breaking into 20, 30, 40 cars at a time. So everything from property crime to violent crimes.
You talk about sex, money, murder. Tell the jury the significance of sex, money, murder, and what exactly it is.
Sure. So sex, money, murder is a traditional gang that was formed back in 1992 in the Soundview housing projects in the Bronx in New York. That gang was initially a drug trafficking organization, and it later was part of the original group that formed the UBN, or United Blood Nation, which was formed within the Rikers Island prison facility there. The formation date, October 31st, 1993. There's a second date that some people benchmark that, July 16th of 1993. Both those dates are used in gang literature. Sex, money, murder joined the UBN on June 6th of 1996, while its founder was being held at Rikers Island.
Now, what were some of the identifiers that you had through your training and experience to know to be associated with sex, money, murder?
So the gang's name is Sex, Money, Murder. They may call it Murder Gang or some variation of that as well. They use common blood gang hand signs and symbols, including red bandanas, 5-point stars, which represent that number 5. The number 5 actually comes from the number of the 5 original UBN sets that formed the United Blood Nation. They say blat. We mentioned slat before. Blat means blood, love all the time. As a sort of counter to that, Crips will say clap, which stands for Crip, love all the time. So there's all these different variations across different gangs. These guys say blat. They use the letter B heavily, and they use Boston Red Sox logos, Bentley logos, things like that. They have a capital letter B in them. They'll tattoo S&M on their persons, sometimes substituting the number 5 for the S to get that additional identifier in there. They'll use 5-point stars. They'll often include red accents within their tattoos. They will tag all of these identifiers, including the gang's name, the number 5, blat, and they'll cross out tagging for rival gangs as well. They'll wear red bandanas and clothing to signify their association. And this is one of those traditional gangs that we talked about way back at the beginning of this morning, where they actually have books of knowledge that actually list out the rules and codes for the members of the gang.
When we're talking about United Blood Nation, what 5 groups does that consist of?
So the 5 original gangs that formed the UBN are Sex, Money, Murder, the 9 Trade Gangster Bloods, the 1-8 Trade Gangster Bloods, the G-Shine or Gangster Killer Bloods, and the Valentine Bloods.
And within the sex, money, murder, or within the United Blood Nation, was there a particular hierarchy or ranking?
There is. It starts at the top with the Godfather, the founder, which is Peter Rollick. Then in each state, there are 2 statewide leaders. One is called the High O20, who's a statewide leader with with some national authority or influence, and below 020, who's a statewide leader with statewide authority. I've kind of summarized the middle management piece of this because they have a bit of a complex middle management rank structure. Essentially, what they do is they divide areas by groups and give leadership chains to certain geographical areas. It was a little much to put on one slide. And then below that, they have the members of the gang, the foot soldiers, they're sometimes called.
And have there been high old flags and all those flags identified in the state of Georgia?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you familiar with the names of those?
The higher 20 for Georgia is Kyle Morey, who's currently being housed in the Department of Corrections.
And how long does he have a new name?
He does. Nasty New.
And as we go to the next slide, talk a little bit about rules and codes as it relates to six-month terms.
Sure, this is a sample of some of the rules and codes that they use. The game itself has 31 codes that members are expected to follow that are listed out in that book of knowledge. They will sometimes use the Peter rule, and that means to kill someone. So that refers to murdering somebody if you Peter rule somebody. That Peter is a reference to that founder, Peter Rollick. They refer to the gang and its members as Blazing Billies. They use the phrase rollout, sort of a general term for just the gang's activities. As you can see, sometimes when they write it out, they'll cross out that C and roll back. Use the expression blood, flat. One example.
What I'm gonna do, y'all, I'm gonna stop it right here.
In the prison system, that's
Because
used to refer to slashing somebody's face with a razor and causing them to have 150.
I'm gonna stop it right here because it's mainly speaking of the gang signs that Youngthug and his nation uses. When I say his nations, I mean his people that deal with him. So all those, he gonna be able to recognize, the jury got to be able to recognize those kind of things. So I would give the jury. I don't know, they don't need to get them that. But I'm gonna stop right here. Y'all go ahead and have a good night, and I'm out.